Hello and welcome to NYC School Secrets. I'm Alina Adams, author of Getting into NYC Kindergarten and Getting into NYC High School, both books available on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. It was a big week for NYC school news. Gifted and Talented request for testing forms opened last week. Of course, they opened on Tuesday afternoon, right before the start of Yom Kippur, and the next day was a public school holiday, so if anything went technically wrong, there wasn't anyone available to turn to. But we're not going to assume there was a malicious or even passive-aggressive reason behind that. We're just going to assume that, like everything else, it was merely incompetence. Again. Important to remember, your child's raw score on the G&T exam doesn't matter. Only their percentile ranking does. And their percentile ranking is strongly affected by the day you sign your child up to take the test on. So before you register, make sure you check out our exclusive test date calendar to figure out your optimal testing time period. You can find the calendar on my website, www.nycschoolsecrets.com. Or better yet, come to a special Gifted and Talented workshop I'm giving tomorrow, Tuesday, October 18th, at River Park Nursery School on the Upper West Side at 6:30 p.m. I'll be talking about the different kinds of programs available, test prep, your odds of getting in, and your options if you don't. I'll also be answering all your burning questions. Register at Nori, Nory.co. That's .co, C-O, not .com. As I've said before, many more kids test gifted in NYC than there are schools to accommodate them all. And yet, unbelievably, there are still some programs with unfilled G&T seats. According to the DOE, they will be accepting new students up through the vague, quote, mid-October, end quote. So if your child qualified and you didn't get a placement back in the spring, call around. For instance, a few weeks ago, one G&T program in District 4 only had 8 kids in it. If your child scored above the 90th percentile, you should be able to grab them a seat there even though the academic year has already started. Contact me at alinaadams@gmail.com for more information. The same goes for places in general education schools. Several of the families I work with privately reported that they got calls last week asking if parents wanted to accept seats in public schools they'd previously applied to. Again, if you're willing to transfer, call. You never know. But roles are closing at the end of the month, so don't delay. Last month, we spoke to a dad about the school rezoning situation on the Upper West Side. Parents who will be applying for kindergarten 2017s are all on edge, wondering which school they might be zoned into without their consent. As of now, the Community Education Council is promising a final proposal on October 19th, with public hearings on October 29th and November 1st, a final presentation on November 3rd, and a vote on November 9th. For a detailed explanation of what exactly is going on and what it might mean to you, go to www.nycschoolsecrets.com, click on podcast, and listen to episode number 21. For parents of children with fall birthdays, deciding on when to send their son or daughter to kindergarten is not a cut and dry choice. Many of the families I work with privately are very unhappy about the idea of their child starting school prior to turning 5 years old. But the DOE is strict. Children must enroll in kindergarten the calendar year they turn 5. No exceptions. Well, except a paragraph slipped into a 14-page list of regulations for the current school year now reads, in cases where a student is required to attend first grade based upon his or her age, but the principal deems that another grade placement would be more instructionally appropriate, the principal will consult with the superintendent concerning placement and will provide medical or other evaluative documentation which has been submitted by the parent or guardian justifying a different placement. The superintendent will make the final decision concerning the appropriate grade level for the student. What does that all mean to you? It means that you've now got a little more wiggle room if you're willing to work for it. But then again, that's pretty much always been the case. Remember what we told you in an earlier podcast about new justifications for being allowed to transfer schools? And speaking of age and school, NPR recently ran a post entitled, "Sixth Grade is Tough. It Helps to be Top Dog." The Anya Kemmons penned post argued that it's better for kids to attend a K through 8 school so that middle schoolers, most of whom are 11 or 12 years old at the time of starting 6th grade, get to be among the big kids in a place where they are already comfortable rather than newbies at a brand new school filled with cliques established long before they got there. In NYC, the majority of public elementary schools are K through 5th grade. Then there's middle school, then high school. Though there are many private K through 8th grade schools, a few 6th through 12th grade schools, and some public and private K through 12th grade ones. When we come back, we'll talk to the head of the Alexander Robertson School, who doubles down on the top dog status and sings the praises of letting 5th graders be the big men and women on campus. Find out why after the break.
Bright Kids is a full-service tutoring and publications company specializing in test preparation and subject tutoring. Knowledgeable account managers guide families from start to finish, ensuring maximum success for students. Trial sessions are now available for only $40. Visit the Bright Kids website at www.bright-kids.com to find out more.
Welcome back to NYC School Secrets. The NYC school admissions process is so brutal that one thing I hear over and over again from parents is, get me into a kindergarten through 12th grade school so that I never, ever have to go through this again. I understand the sentiment, really I do, but two caveats. First, no school is a life sentence, and there is a lot of movement that goes on, especially around 3rd and 4th grade, and then again at the middle school and high school levels. At a typical K through 12 school, less than half the kids graduating started there in kindergarten. That's because it is very difficult to judge when your child is 4 years old what they're going to need both academically and socially when they're 9 or 11 or 14. That's why Irvin Schaer, head of the private Alexander Robertson School, urges parents who aren't sure of exactly what kind of learner their child will turn out to be, and let's face it, none of us know what kind of learners our children will turn out to be. He urges them to consider a school that ends at 5th grade. We'll let him explain.
Hello, Irvin. Welcome to the New York City School Secrets podcast.
Good morning, Alina. How are you?
I'm very well, and I'm ready to ask you this very important question, which is, while the majority of public elementary schools are K through 5th grade, Alexander Robertson is one of only 3 private K through 5th grade schools in New York City. What are the benefits of this particular model?
Well, having been head of schools that went to 6th first, and then I added grades and took it to 8th grade, and having run schools that went to 12th grade, and also having run a very large middle school with over 500 students, I actually see the benefits as many. To begin with, the fact that students apply in kindergarten or in junior kindergarten or pre-kindergarten to ongoing independent schools precludes the ability of the school from understanding or knowing what the child's, the boy or the girl's learning style is when they enter school at age 4 or 5, and what kind of a learner they're going to be when they're in 3rd or 4th grade. So, being one of only 3 schools that only goes through 5th grade allows us to see these students at the earliest point of their learning stage, and also understand their learning style as they go through the grade year, so that by the time they're about 9, which is 3rd grade or so, we have a much clearer understanding of what their learning style is, whether they are verbal, whether they're auditory, whether they're tactile, or a combination of those 3. The other 2 schools that only go to 5th grade are Corliers and Cadman. Those are the other 2 schools in Manhattan. The further advantage of this school of Alexander Robertson is that it was founded in 1789, and that, it's a school that's been around a long time now, but most importantly, it began as a co-ed school at a time in the history of schools in New York City when they were single-sex schools, and boys and girls were not commingled. So Alexander Robertson, along with Friends Seminary, were the 2 earliest devisers of such an education. So the other thing is, if you follow, people like Piaget, he talks about boys and girls coming together at around age 9, girls being earlier readers, not a perfect science, but in many of the instances that I have seen over my career, the girls are far more ready for fine motor skills, and at an earlier stage, usually at 5 or 6, and boys are still, engrossed in large motor skills and would prefer to sit there and work with Lego or work with building blocks and lay off the reading and the writing for a bit. So at around 3rd grade, Piaget talks about boys catching up to the girls and leveling off. And so being in a school where a student gets their early skills and is readied, in fact, for middle school transition, I think there's a large advantage for the student. Namely, when they go into a 6th grade, they often go in with other students because it's an entry point for many schools. In any case, even schools that begin at pre-K or K typically have openings around 6th grade because they themselves come to the same conclusions that by the time they see these students when they're in 3rd or 4th grade, they have a better sense of what kind of a learner they are and whether or not the style of that particular school fits the child's needs and whether the school fits into the student fits into the school with a level of comfort, with the highest level of comfort. And look, the idea of all this is to maximize the potential of every child, and by being a school that focuses on that through 5th grade, we give these students every opportunity to grow, but grow at their pace, so that when it's time to move on to middle school, where there's a departmentalized environment with 8 or 9 subjects a day, they're far more ready to take on those additional challenges than they would have been in kindergarten or in 1st grade even, or 2nd grade. So that would be one of the reasons. The other reason also is that students, learn early many things that suit them and help them as they go through middle school and into high school. And learning those traits early on, but focusing on the elementary grades, I think allows us, to give those students, far more skills and far more traits than schools that are busy also looking at where they are in middle school and where they are at high school. Schools typically that go through 12th grade, which I've run as well, focus on the later years and also entry into college. Our focus is into entry into middle school. So, and the further advantage is that because other schools begin to see that those were not perfect fits for every student that they enrolled in kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, typically at minimum 20-25% of the students who enroll in pre-K or K don't continue in those schools through graduation from 12th grade, and that's the reality of the private school systems, of which there are over 70 in New York City. And having served on the board of the Headmasters Guild in the city, I've seen it firsthand. And I've seen students who then have to make a decision, and often against their will, to move on to another school. And so being in a school that clarifies this early on, I think allows the family and the students to be at the highest level of comfort and truly focus on their learning.
So from a strategic standpoint, would you also say that it's easier if you want to move on to a K-12 school to come in at the 6th grade level rather than at the 9th grade high school level?
Yes, because it permits the school, the ongoing school, to have a hard look at the student and then help them straighten out or foster those skills that may need more reinforcement and it still gives them a couple of years to do that. It allows them to see how they move from a homeroom teacher who teaches most subjects, except for what I would call the specials, the physical education, the music, perhaps a foreign language and art, and into an environment where the homeroom teacher in 6th grade may be teaching them one subject at best. Mm-hmm. So it's a nicer transition, and I think it's a smoother transition, and there are also enough students moving on at that point that the child doesn't feel as if he or she are the only ones moving on to a new school in 6th grade.
So where can prospective parents learn more about the Alexander Robertson School?
On our website, and certainly coming to an open house and visiting the school. We hold open houses every Thursday morning, and we've already seen 70 or 75 students in this short opening of the school year.
And what's your website?
It's alexanderrobertson.org.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
As we said earlier, the majority of public NYC elementary schools are K through 5th grade, though the citywide gifted schools are kindergarten through 8th grade, while 2 gifted schools, Hunter and Nest Plus M, are K through 12th grade. Something to think about as you head into the 2017 admission season. What grade do you want your child to be the top dog in? That's it for this week. I'm Alina Adams, author of Getting into NYC Kindergarten and Getting into NYC High School, available on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. Got questions about applying? We've got answers. On November 1st, I'll be doing a Getting into NYC Kindergarten workshop at Dazzling Discoveries, followed by a Getting into NYC High School workshop at Skill Mill NYC on November 2nd. And don't forget my special Gifted and Talented Q&A session tomorrow, Tuesday, October 18th at River Park Nursery School. Register at nori.co. We'll be back next week.